Welcome to Mojo Motivation and Mental Health, where we have conversations that change lives. I'm Mike Orlowski. And before we start today, if you're successful on the outside but feeling invisible on the inside, if you're doing everything right but feeling empty, please know that reclamation is possible. Please know you're not alone. If you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, mental anxiety, just overall loneliness, you're not alone. Call 988, text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call 911 if it's an emergency. If this show does help you or is helping you, it might help someone else, please subscribe, like, and share this episode so we can reach further and deeper. Your support really helps us out. Now, today's conversation is about the people nobody talks about in mental health, the successful ones who are disappearing. My guest is Candice Mitchell, author of Choose You, and an expert in what's called career invisibility. Candice works with a specific demographic, successful people who feel trapped by the lives that they've built, executives, professionals, high achievers, people who do everything right on the surface, and yet they're invisible. Not invisible to the world, invisible to themselves. And here's what Candice has learned. There's a pattern that happens to high performers. You start small, maybe in your family, maybe in school, learning that shrinking makes you safer, that being less threatens people less, that invisibility is protection. And that pattern works. You excel, you achieve, you succeed, you're respected, promoted, trusted. You get everything success is supposed to give you. And then one day you wake up and realize you don't know who you are anymore. You've been invisible for so long, you've forgotten that there's an authentic self underneath that performance. That's career invisibility. And it's a mental crisis nobody's talking about, nobody's naming. Now, Candice teaches 5 pillars of agency, a framework for reclaiming yourself. She identifies 6 work archetypes so you can see yourself in the pattern. And she's written Choose You as a roadmap for people who are successful but trapped. And here's the thing. It's not about blaming yourself for your choice or your choices. It's about understanding the pattern and actively choosing yourself back. We're going to talk about why high achievers become invisible, what that costs mentally, and how to reclaim your authentic self while staying successful. Candice, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. What an introduction. I'm
You're
really looking
welcome.
forward to this conversation.
I am as well. I'm glad to have you here and excited to talk further. I guess you work with folks that are successful who feel trapped by the lives that they've built. I've had some experiences similar to that in my life, so I can understand and relate a little bit, but it is a very specific demographic. Who are they? What does trap look like when everything's successful or everything looks successful on the outside?
Yeah, so who they are it's hard to pinpoint honestly, and it emerged through a lot of conversations I was having. So I work in learning and development, and that function is the support function. And I think
Hmm.
that's where it started, where let me say my realization started that this was not just a me issue. This was not, I was not on my own island, but it was in fact other professionals feeling like this. And what it looks like in a nutshell, it's not, you can't even really see it. Let me say what it feels like to the individual is eventually when you stop moving. So you stop chasing, you stop, working for that next promotion, you stop like being the person that replies to emails in 2 seconds. And you
Hmm.
realize, oh my gosh, I'm living my life on autopilot. When last did I make a decision for me or, like truly know me? And I'll get to the story of where this came from, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Is it kind of similar to some of the quiet? I mean, I imagine it is related to, and you see a lot of the quiet quitting that they talk about these days, right? Um, maybe where they're not putting in the same level of effort and they're just kind of backing down, or again, just maybe you lose a little bit of motivation. Is that some of the same things you see?
That's where it eventually gets to. So it
Okay.
doesn't start there. Like quiet quitting is, I mean, so, in your introduction, you mentioned the 6 archetypes. So
Hmm.
quiet quitting would be just one element of the 6 archetypes. But, one of the archetypes, for instance, is called the overachiever. And that is
Hmm.
that person that will raise their hand for every single project, for every single volunteer opportunity. They'll be leading things outside of their job, for growth, or, being seconded to different things or being assigned to stretch projects.
Mm,
That's also part of it. So, and that's why I created the six archetypes, because it can be in someone who looks the most successful, right? Like, this person is getting promoted every year, but they are so burnt out. Or this person is the joy in all the meetings, but you know, they're just not being true to themselves. They're feeling tired and they're just not saying so. So, yeah, there's many different elements, and that's why I really dug into the six archetypes, which was very fun doing the research and putting those together.
I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more. But first, I guess, tell me a little bit more about your story and kind of when you realized this was a situation you were struggling with.
There were a few moments, I take it as little clues, because I do say it wasn't one big, like, aha moment. But
Hmm.
one of the things was, when I moved to Colorado, I'm, obviously not from here, I'm from South Africa. So we moved to a new place and we're meeting new people. And at some point, I was about a year here, and someone was like, "What do you want to, what do you like to do for fun?" And I couldn't really answer. I was thinking, well, I do yoga. And then I thought, do I just do yoga for fun? Like, is that my whole self? So just over time, and again, it's like doing everything for everyone, you lose yourself along the way. You kind of get chipped down and you forget. And you say it's in those high achievers, and that does tend to happen, because we're the go-to person. We're the person that supports everyone. We're there for everyone else. So that's that's one of the moments that made me realize what was happening.
And I guess, similar to others, is it you talk about the shrinking pattern and high performers learn that maybe early on that being less is safer. And I think back to when I was a kid, there were times in life where I would do the same. For example, you're in school. I got pretty good grades in elementary school and middle school, but I didn't like to speak out. So I would just sit back and try to sit as far back where I could when they didn't have assigned seats. I wouldn't speak up. I would just do my work, right? Because I didn't want someone to laugh or stare at me or think it was funny, even though I maybe didn't think it was funny. So I started young. I always did a good job, but I shrunk. I stayed in the back. Is it common for most people that it starts when they're in school, like it did for me?
Yeah, it can start anytime. So in my book, the very first chapter is called The Invisible Child. And I tell a story in that chapter where I was still in elementary school. I think I was 8 or 9. And
Hmm.
I actually chose to hide when recess came along, because I didn't want to go out to recess because I had no one. So I
Mm,
had no friends at that age. And so I, like, it was just like in the moment, and I just went under my desk, and it was still when our school bags were under our desk, and I was like rummaging for my school lunch and taking, much longer than I needed to. And in that moment, the teacher didn't see me and actually locked the door. And that level of relief, being alone, like not being seen alone, that's what I say in the book. It was about, I could just be alone and not be seen alone.
mhm.
So, and in the first part of the book, I take people through moments in time where we do lose ourselves. And that was, so it could happen anywhere, but definitely your story is one of them. And I actually have the chapter called Copy Paste Teenager. So yeah, it happens. Yeah, you never think about it. But yeah, if you think back, you probably know that there were many moments like that when you
Yeah,
chose to be smaller.
your example of recess kind of brought back to my memory. I know for a fact that I tried to do the same, and was seen by a teacher and didn't have the opportunity to stay behind. But I would always try to. I had certain friends that I would sometimes hang out with, but if they weren't around, there were other kids that I wanted to stay away with. So I would try to find ways to even hide in plain sight, or I couldn't get away with staying inside. I tried a couple times, but I know that feeling. I've been there as well, and for me, it was anxiety related a
Hmm.
lot of the time, but it's hard to stop because you become more comfortable with being hidden, I guess is the probably good way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you don't even know you're doing it, so and again, I think what's important for your listeners to understand is that it's not just the quiet people. It can be those loud, rambunctious people. Um, Again, it's that over. I've got three archetypes that are more extroverted, so to speak, and it's the overachiever, the always on, and the hurricane. And those are the people that will walk into a room and they like own the place, and they just have so much energy and
Hmm.
confidence, and or they so kind of aggressive in their decision making, and but
Hmm.
yet they're just doing it almost to overcompensate, and so that's the two sides, not even two sides. Again, like I do think it's the six archetypes that really I've had people say to me like, how do you know these people? I'm like, yeah, because I've worked with all of them. Like these are people I wrote about. They are actual people that I wrote about. Like, yes, I might have exaggerated them a little bit, but I got to know them and I know their insecurities and their fears. And, so it doesn't necessarily mean that person that's not speaking is the only one feeling it. And that's what I really am passionate about, is like people who look like they have everything figured out are also just struggling, they're not being themselves. Not this party person the whole time. And, that's not
Hmm.
all of them. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very multifaceted, and yeah, we can go
But
very deep.
well, yeah. Well, and speaking from experience, I know that I've hit more than one of those categories before, and I'm still kind of the always on person these days. And now that I work for myself, it's not the same. But in previous jobs, I would definitely not take on all the projects, but I was still always on. And as I got a little bit further in my career, I got better at being more comfortable speaking out, but it took real work. Now, career invisibility, it's different than other forms of self loss. It's specific to the professional context, right? But how does it differ from, say, general burnout or depression? What is the Are there any distinct differences that you see there?
I would say, and I have an interesting take, so, take it with a grain of salt, whoever is listening, but I think depression and burnout and imposter syndrome and all of those things are symptoms or results, and even the quiet quitting, like you were saying, are the results of not being yourself and not being your full self. I know we throw around this word authenticity a lot, but I will say that I was authentic in showing up at work. I just wasn't my full self. So I would hide parts of me. I would dim parts of me, make parts of me quiet. So it's about really bringing your full self, and saying when you disagree with something, or advocating for yourself. I'm a big believer in that. I have a whole,
Yes.
YouTube video on just advocating for yourself. That's what I speak about in conferences and things like that. Because I truly feel that even those high performers, they're not, and it's not bragging. It's just saying that I achieved this thing and I helped the company achieve these things, or I supported these people to achieve this thing, and to talk about it. So yeah, that's so to answer your question, burnout, imposter syndrome, depression, all of that is symptoms like come
Hmm.
after you not feeling free in your
Right.
environment.
And I would venture to say, I mean, from my perspective, career invisibility has a pretty negative consequence on mental health because we're not our full authentic self. We're hiding from certain things, probably negative self talk involved in some cases. Am I missing anything? Are there any others?
Hmm. I think also putting on an act, like feeling that you have to be this person, and I'll use one example. One archetype is called the hurricane, the office hurricane. And I mirror that character on a couple bosses I had, not just one.
Hmm.
And I feel like they didn't want to be mean and pushing back on everything and questioning everything and micromanaging and just, I always said if the one person was in a bad mood, the whole office had to be in a bad mood too. I don't think
Yes.
that's what that person wanted,
No,
so
probably not. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so I feel like it's that overcompensating, it's this putting on a performance, it's acting, thinking this is what leadership looks like, right? I'm a bully. It's that act, it's that, you know, just not staying true to yourself. Yeah, it's that's how I'd answer that.
Yes. And now your framework is 5 pillars of agency, a
Mhm.
roadmap for reclamation. Why don't we walk through those pillars, what they are, and identify maybe what people need to do to reclaim themselves?
Mhm. Yes. Okay, I'll do one at a time and then stop for questions because otherwise I'll just
Okay.
blab on for the next hour. So
Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
aware. I really feel strongly about these 5 pillars. So the book that I wrote, that was the book. So the 5 pillars of agency was the book, and then the other 2 parts grew from there,
Okay.
right? So that's where I started. And where these 5 pillars of agency actually came from was my own lived experience. So, I think I just had a lot of things chipping away at me over time. And
Hmm.
in about a 4-year period, I got married, I had both of my children. We lived in 5 different houses, 2 different states, 2 different countries. My husband was working 14 hours a day. I lost my dad, which was like the most, still to this day, like the hardest thing I've ever gone through. So moving countries, all the things, right? Just like, so that chipping. And so it came a time when I was having such negative self talk. You spoke about that earlier. And I caught myself thinking, like, oh, what value do I add here? And it was in my relationship, and I was thinking, like, what could my husband possibly see in me? Like, how, this nothing. And I caught myself thinking that, and I was like, Candice, how dare you speak to yourself like this?
Hmm.
I didn't. So it was that moment. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something about it. And that's where pillar 1 was formed. So remember who you are is pillar 1.
Okay.
And I took months to do this. I would go on hikes with a journal and I'd write down, things that fired me up, things that lit me up, things that, energized me. And I'd, journal only positive things, right? Like, so I have a whole positive journal that I don't write any negative things in the book. So I've got like this vibe of positivity in the book. So I'd write all of that. I went back and I read all my personality assessments, that I'd done over the years, things like DISC and Insights and Strengths Finders and all of those reports. And I'd highlight what felt good and kind of discard what didn't, write it in my journal, like, so it was a process of remembering who I was. So yeah, that's pillar 1. And I'll stop there for questions or like conversation.
Well, that's pretty important because I think it happens to a very large majority of us is that we do kind of forget who we are as we go through our career, and we'll have maybe bosses or companies that work us to death, right? And we're overworked and we're just head down, working our brains out, just nonstop, overwhelmed. We tend to forget who we are. And I think that's a very important pillar because it's one that we need to make, especially now more than ever, make a focus on because our identity is not our job.
Mm, mhm. No, no, it's not. And for me to say that is hard because I love my work. Like, I love it. I love what I do. Like, it does bring me joy. You can see in my face right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Like, I love my work. I'm obsessed,
yeah,
but it's not my whole self, right? Like, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
also
Right.
remembering that. So, yeah. And that was another thing, actually. And I got laid off all within
Mm,
those 4 years.
yeah,
That was another chip, a huge chip that I actually didn't say. Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And it causes a big loss of confidence when you get laid off too. So it's
Mhm.
what did I do wrong? Like we did something wrong, and in reality, 9 times out of 10, it wasn't anything that we did. It was a company
Mhm.
making changes. Downsizing is very common. So yeah.
Mhm.
Remembering who we are is extremely important.
Yes.
What's the second one?
Yes, and I want to lead by saying these pillars are in order. So
Okay.
they do step one from the other. So pillar two is find your people. And
Mm,
find your
mhm,
people means if you're shrinking or apologizing who you are in front of people, like find a different room. Like that
mhm,
took me a long time to realize that I was apologizing for my ambition or, because I love my work, but I would never speak about it because the people around me did not love their work, so I felt like braggy because I loved it and very much like I'm too much. And I laugh. I'm like, oh, that's going to be my TED talk, being too much because that's a theme in my life. But I felt too much. And then I started deliberately finding different rooms and networking groups and then feeling like, no, my dreams are not even big enough. I could dream
mhm.
even bigger, and that
Yeah.
that was the find your people that you can just relax in. And that was also, I'll just circle or close the loop on my dad. Like he was a big inspiration in that, find your people, because he was the one person that I never had to put a show on. Like that was my person, that I was 100% myself. And so that loss kind of led me to be like, whoa, okay, you actually have to go out and find those people that don't judge you, that can have space for your dreams and sit in the mud with you. But it's both, right? It's like they can sit in the mud with you, like Simon Sinek will say, but also celebrate you. So
Yes.
yeah, that's pillar two.
Well, and we all fall into that trap, I think, as we end up surrounding ourselves with a lot of times people who are like us too, who probably are also struggling or burned out, or maybe sharing the negativity in our lives, and instead we sometimes have to change find our tribe and find the folks that are going to encourage you and lift you up and not judge. And it's not an easy thing to do sometimes, but sometimes it's necessary. And finding the right people can truly transform your life.
Truly, yes, yes. And I do say, like, it's great to have the people who will sit in the mud with you, but I don't want to sit in the mud all the time. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to be in the mud the whole time, so I really do want to be
Right.
dancing on the rainbows. Like, I do.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
And what's the third one?
Yes. So the third one is to speak up. And this is another one. I mean, all five I feel very strongly about. Otherwise, I would have thrown it away. But speak up is about advocating for yourself. So it's
Yes.
about knowing your value, speaking about it proudly, holding your dreams, feeling good about that, like not diminishing your ambition to suit others. There's a saying, and I can't even remember if I put it in the book or not, but something that I have in my head the whole time is like, if you want to be an ocean, be an ocean. Don't be a pond because other people can't swim, right? And that's that whole like speak up, be proud to be an ocean, and that's okay. So yeah, that's the third one. And I
And
actually, even in my course, I help people advocate for themselves. I've got slide shows and templates and stuff just for people to speak proudly about themselves.
it's easy to not. Been there, also done that, where I didn't do it and learned to do it over the years, but more importantly, taught my kids for before high school on to learn to advocate for themselves to the point where we said, "Look, you're in high school. You're going to advocate for yourself. We're not gonna do it for you." And it's made a huge difference in their lives as well because it sets them up for future ability and success to do so,
Hmm.
as long as they continue to do that. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
I agree, that's very important.
Yep. Hmm.
Amazing.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so what's the
You
next
ready
one?
for number four?
Number 4.
Okay. Number
Yes.
four is start before you're ready. And this was
Yes.
another such a good lesson for me because as a business owner, I was kind of waiting for my website to be perfect or waiting
Mm,
until I understood my email marketing or just constantly waiting. Even
yes.
even when I was in corporate, it's like, okay, I'm gonna wait until I complete this degree and then I'll be
Hmm.
ready. And it's like, no, actually, by starting and taking action, that's how you build the confidence. And so many of us are waiting for the confidence before we take action. But no, 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 no. We have to take action to build the confidence. And I can't stress that enough. Do it, make the mistake, do the wrong thing, learn from it, but do
Yeah,
the thing. Like I
agreed.
cannot stress that enough, take the action and I promise you the confidence will come.
Absolutely been guilty of not taking action and have
Mm.
taken action. I starting my company, I did some of the same things not 6 months ago where I'm like, okay, well, I got to finish the website first before I do this, and fell into the same trap. And I talk about it as well with other folks. And not only does taking action build confidence, it builds momentum. And you hear the saying, build the airplane as you're flying it. And I think that's a very good analogy for folks to realize like you're going to find things that need to be fixed. And in some cases, the things that we built needed to be fixed and we wasted time instead of just taking action and getting started
Hmm.
and at the same time adjusting on the fly. So I
Yeah.
think that's absolutely critical.
Yes. Like you'll never be done. There'll always be something. And I'm not just talking to business owners now. I'm talking, I say the same thing to my children. You know,
Hmm.
my son loves soccer, and it's a great analogy because I'm like, you'll never be done. Like even Messi still practices. He's still,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's it. You're never done, and so you may as well just move forward, even baby steps, and fumble and fall and get yourself up and keep going. Yeah, that was invaluable for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always tell myself 1% better every day or, one step at a time and
Mhm.
find a
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
keep moving forward. It's really, really, really important. And now what's the fifth?
Yes, so the fifth was actually added. So when I went to write the book, it was the 4 pillars of agency, and then I read a book.
Uh,
And believe me, the book was not about this, but I took the lesson because, and let me remember the name of the book. It was something like it's like the no BS marketing strategy for like the top 1%, right? So
mhm,
because what I do, I work with CEOs who've generally just raised VC
mhm,
and now they're scaling. And I say they're going to be crushed under their own weight unless they bring their people with them. So those are the people I work with. So I read this book to target that audience, right? Because they running very successful businesses. They've raised 500 plus, like to $5 million. Like, so, and they're growing from maybe 50 people to like 300 people. So I read this book. So I just want to give you that context because I wasn't reading the book with my book in mind.
yeah,
But then during the book, they kind of go through myths of wealthy people. Oh, wealthy
mhm,
people just inherited it, and
mhm,
wealthy people didn't study, and all of this stuff. And then they go through some case studies like Gary Vee and that kind of thing. And then I
mhm,
realize as I'm listening to this book, and I'm thinking, there is no difference between me and Gary Vee. The only difference is that he believed he could and he went for it. It was hard work, it was grit, he didn't inherit a trust fund. He just worked hard. Nothing was handed to him like, oh, here, become Gary Vee. No, he worked for that and he just had the grit and the determination. And it was the belief in himself and like the undeniable, like he will not quit. And so I thought, yeah, there is literally nothing different between me and Gary Vee except belief. And so I added the fifth pillar, which is reset your perspective. Like believe that you can achieve your dreams and your goals. So that was the long-winded way of why I added the fifth pillar, but why I thought it was essential. Because as I'm listening to this book, I'm like, yeah, there's nothing between us. There's nothing, So I was like, what is between us? And
yeah.
it's just the perspective.
And I think it was, and I could be misquoting, but I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, if you can believe it, you can achieve it.
Mm.
But it might have been Dale Carnegie actually that said that.
Okay. Yeah.
Speaking of Gary Vee, I actually have one of his books right here, Day Trading Attention, but
Nice. Yeah.
he speaks the same things that you say as far as anybody can do what I do. You just
Hmm.
have to do the work. You have to
Yeah.
believe. You have to take action. He says the same thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, I follow him all the time.
Yes. Love him or hate him. I love him on like
Right. Oh yeah, he's a New
maybe
Jersey
half of your
guy. I mean,
listeners just dropped off. I don't know because it
yeah.
really is a
Well,
love or hate, but I love him. I really think
yeah. I mean,
done well.
he's
Like
he
good for him, good for him.
he's done great. He keeps it real. He's a New Jersey guy. New York, New Jersey, it's a different personality. Some people don't like it. I can roll with it. It's the message that matters.
Hmm.
So from the pillars, when you said that there's also 6 work archetypes,
Hmm.
and it involves identifying those that you embody as part of your journey with Choose You. What are these archetypes, and why is recognizing your pattern so important for change?
Hmm. Awareness is step one in making any change. And
Hmm.
so that is what the archetypes are. So how I created the archetypes was through so I had 7 to start off with and just kept churning through the data and the information and the people in my life. I do say in my disclaimer, which people comment the most on, which is so funny. They're like, "Your disclaimer is so funny." Like, "You read the disclaimer?" Like, who does that?
I
But
do
I
that.
do say, like, no lab coats were hurt in the making of these archetypes because it's my experience. I've got a degree in psychology. I've got 20 years working with people. I've got several postgraduate degrees. So it really is like my experience. And I've trained in insights, disc, Enneagram,
Hmm.
strengths finders. What are the other ones I include? Oh, the 16 personality types. Like, so I've
Hmm.
trained in all of these things. And so I came up with these 6 work archetypes and I link them in the book to these different well known assessments, DISC and Enneagram and things like that.
Hmm.
So the 6 work archetypes are not, I don't say they're introverted, extroverted. I don't say that. So they are, and let me test my memory here. So they are the hurricane, which is really the person in the office that when they arrive, you know, like things happen, but it also feels a bit chaotic and you kind of on
Yeah.
edge and you're like, "Oh, they're
Everybody
coming into
knows.
the meeting. We better be ready." That kind of person. We have the pleaser. That's the person who always says yes to everything, but like not in a yes way, but in a yeah, it's fine, I'll do that. Like, yeah, I'll take the minutes for this meeting. Yeah, sure. That kind of person. We have the placeholder who just goes under the radar, but they also know everything. So they feel safe because they've been in the role probably 15 years. They've probably been in the company like 20 years and in the same role for 15 years. So
Hmm.
that's the placeholder. So they're a little bit
Okay.
scared to unroot. They don't trust themselves. Then the overachiever, who is the person who gets promoted all the time and the
Hmm.
person who leads every project and, just so they're different to the pleaser. They're not taking the minutes for sure. They're leading the meeting. And we have the always on, which is the person who raises the energy for everyone. They are the light and the sunshine and enter a room and everyone's like, "Oh, yay, they've arrived." So just carrying that energy. And then the magnets, I did remember them all. Yes. Then the magnet, who is that person who tends to always join the bad companies. So they
Mm,
they blame everyone else. So it's not them. They just attract this negativity. So they'll be like, "Yeah, my manager is so controlling, or the team are so incompetent, or the
mhm,
company doesn't know what they're doing," that kind of person. So, and all of these are like the negative side. So, yeah, one day I'll spin it around to the other, not the invisible archetypes, but I'll do some other
sure.
archetypes.
And I think most
Yeah.
of us can identify with those
Mm,
folks, those
yeah.
different archetypes, especially the
Yeah.
negative, I mean, I've seen that time and again. I think I probably was that, the hurricane. You can always tell when they're coming and leaving.
Mm.
There's noise, there's damage, there's
Mhm. Yeah.
buzz from the hurricane, right? So how do
Yes.
you, with what you do, are you taking the framework and then identifying the archetypes and then helping people identify first theirs and then steps to adjust?
Yes, exactly. So, and look, I would be surprised if I met one person on the planet that has never experienced one of the archetypes at work
Right.
and
I'm
themselves,
sure.
not others. Like, if someone is listening to this and thinking, "Oh, well, I'm none of that." Wow. Like, please call me. I want to meet you and interview you. That would be amazing. But I don't think so. So, and you're probably more than one archetype, right? Because you have your
Sure.
bad days and that's just so
Yeah.
normal. Like, this is
Yeah.
not insulting at all. It's like awareness again, back to the
Hmm.
awareness, which is step one. So I actually have the invisible archetype quiz, which I can give you the link and we can put it in the description. So you
Okay,
take a
cool.
quiz and then you get your top archetype. And this is a moment in time, right? So you could do it this year, you could do it next year and be a different archetype, and the scores will swing. But you can take the invisible work archetype quiz and then, depending on your top archetype, you get automatically put into a 7-day archetype reset where I walk you through for 7 days, little tiny steps, so all customized to whatever archetype scores the most.
Hmm.
And then you just start to ask yourself questions. I challenge you to think about something differently or react differently or behave in a different way or show up or ask a question or whatever it looks like. And I've got some like tear jerking feedback from that 7-day reset challenge, I call it. So, I mean, the one person's like, I feel so seen. And yeah, so I would encourage everyone to do that because, again, it's just about awareness, right? And as soon as you know, you can do something about it. And then how that
Absolutely.
feeds into the pillars is like you can use the pillars as any archetype, and then you can just work through yourself and kind of getting out of the invisible work archetype.
Sure. And let's say there's a high performer listening right now. They're successful, they're respected, they've been promoted, doing everything right, but they're invisible to themselves. What would you tell them? And how do
Mm.
they even recognize right now that they've become invisible?
Yes, how you recognize, and I know exactly who I'm talking to right now. Yeah, because I work with so many and I have friends and I have family. So I know exactly the
Yeah.
person. What I would say is, can you easily answer what you like to do if you're not being a dad, if you're not being a mom, if you're not at work? If you were to just take a day to feel joy, what would you do for that day? And how easy is it for you to answer that question? And that was hard for me. Again, like, will I do yoga for a full day? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, often you feel like you're on autopilot. And this is a big one. This is, you wake up, you get the kids ready for school, you get them to school, you go to work, you go to your meetings, you come home, you cook dinner, you might speak with your spouse or partner for like 10 minutes. You so exhausted, you go to bed, you wake up, and it's like Groundhog Day every day. And
I
you
was
don't
going to
take a
say, just like the movie.
second.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you don't take a second to even think, "Am I enjoying this?" Because
Yes.
you don't have time. You're just literally living on autopilot, and it's surviving rather than living your life.
Yes. And it has a hugely negative impact on mental health because I've
Mhm.
lived it too, but you don't realize it in the moment. So it's important to step back and think about those things. I love that. Now, one barrier, and I've dealt with this too, to choosing yourself is fear. Fear that being more authentically you will threaten success or relationships or status. Talk about fear and how do you help successful people overcome the belief that maybe they have to stay invisible to stay safe?
Wow. That is a question. Important. Let me think about this because that fear is so real. And I want to
Hmm.
flip the script a little bit.
Hmm.
So it's two things. And it's both and, right? So you can fear that, yeah, your authentic self might make you a failure or people will leave you or whatever the thing is, or your friends won't like you. But there's also fear of success
Hmm.
because that identity in itself can be very hard.
Hmm.
Because if you're successful, people look at you differently. Then you're going to get fake friends. All of
Hmm.
those things that come with even perceived success. You don't need, like, what is success? But if people are perceiving you as successful, they might not even want to hang out with you anymore. Or in a man woman relationship, it's like if the woman's earning more, is that a problem in your
Hmm.
dynamics? So there's just, and that's why this question, you really hit me because it's like, yeah, that fear, it just has so many dimensions and angles. And it's not just fear of showing up and being yourself, but it's like, and I'm successful because of that, what's going to happen? So we can live in this state of fear and that can just stop us. And it actually, it really is like the thief. I mean, I'm sure this is a saying somewhere, but like it steals your joy. And I just feel like
Yes.
we need to live more joyous. Like that, I've got it on my vision board, like be joyful, like be
Yes.
happy, just, and even all my passwords, like no one can hack me because I've got all many, but my passwords are I get to, and then whatever it is, like if it's for my
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
insurance,
Yeah.
I get to be healthy. Like for my dentist, I get to have straight teeth, like whatever, like I'm making that up, but I even have that as my password. So every time I'm putting in a password, it's like, yeah, like I get to
Reaffirming.
do this. It's
Yeah.
amazing, and yeah,
And
just living more in joy.
and I think overcoming that fear you talked about earlier it starts with taking action, right?
Mm,
Because the first time we take action and we see the impact, it builds confidence and it leads to a little more confidence in doing it again and then doing it again. And it becomes a domino effect.
hmm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yes, I wish I was less fearful. Like, you don't need to not feel fear, but you need to push through it and do it anyway. And that's, yeah, definitely something I'm consciously working towards because it is scary. Like, life is scary. I don't want to say running your own business is scary because I've been in corporate for half of my life and pushing for that promotion, taking on that project. Like, all of that is scary, but do it anyway.
Yeah. Right. Just do it. Take action. Now, I know you're working with folks. You're speaking at events and conferences. You work with successful people who recognize themselves in your framework. Share maybe a story or two of someone who's realized they were invisible. Obviously, you don't have to name names, but some type of a position they were in and how they maybe thought they were invisible and some of the steps that they took.
Yeah, can a few come to mind actually? Okay. Okay. So I was chatting with someone that is really struggling. So is
Hmm.
really successful, is in the C-suite,
Hmm.
is doing a phenomenal job, but is completely, I mean, could I say burning out? I don't know because I don't like overusing that word. But just their light is gone. Let me say that. They used to love this work. They used to be in it for all the right reasons. And now there's just things challenging their values and their identity and things like that. So, and I've only had, let me say, informal conversations. So, if I could sit down and interview this person, I would. But just in talking through our relationship that we've built, saying to me things like, I cried reading your
Mhm.
book. Like, I cried reading this part, and I'm going to do the assessment and find out. I think I already know who I am, but I'm going to
Mhm.
do it anyway. And then
Mhm.
they came back to me and said, yes, I am that person. And then that 7-day reset challenge, they were like, it's literally like you're talking to me, just me. And
Mhm.
so because of that connection, because I still speak with this person every week, twice a week, and I observe a different person. They are holding boundaries more. They're
Mhm.
asking better questions. They are unpacking the work that they love versus why they don't love it anymore. It has been, honestly, they don't know this. They don't even know the impact it's had on me. But seeing them live this journey, and I'm like, wow, I've actually impacted someone, even if it's just this one person. And I can't tell you, yeah, I'm like, it's emotional. Like, wow. And I've just watched this person hold that space and be truer to themselves, and like even almost, not quite, but almost lean on me as like a little bit of a sounding board. And that's not our relationship, but I cherish that. I cherish it so much. Yeah, so that's the one example I can think of more, but yeah, that is, even things like reading my Amazon reviews have brought me to tears. Like, I can't tell you, because yeah, I mean, if the joy of being a person is like even if you make one other person's life better, I mean, wow, what a
Right.
privilege, what an absolute
Agree.
privilege. So,
I say the same with the podcast. I don't care if it only reaches one person that needs to hear it. That one person needed to hear it, and that's all that
hmm
matters.
hmm
And I think it's important because it is a individual person by person, case by case basis where you're
hmm
having that impact, and that shows that they're not alone and you're not alone. And I think I feel the same when I have these conversations about mental health, and it's uplifting. So,
hmm hmm
last question would be, I guess, you went from invisible success to choosing yourself, conscious choice, authentic reclamation. What is possible when successful people choose themselves back?
hmm Yes. And I will say, in my corporate career, I did get to do work I loved. So I do want
Hmm.
to say that out loud. I love, like, I have done my career since the beginning of my career. I've been in learning
Hmm.
and development or talent development, whatever we're calling ourselves, since the beginning. And I truly love my work. And so I do just want to say that as a first step, if you don't love your work, you should, like, try and
Yeah,
find, and yes, of course, some of us are kind of stuck because the bills, and, we're kind of
of
too
course.
far, or, we're like 10 years down the wrong track or something, and you kind of feel stuck. Like, sure, I totally get you and I see you there. But then do a side gig or something that brings you that life and that joy, because I am so grateful that I get to love my work that I do. And I still to
No
this
doubt.
day. So, yeah, what I would say to people that are stuck would be, if you can, do a career pivot if you're so miserable. Like, I can't tell you the difference it makes, just knowing that you get to wake up every day. And like, I cannot wait to get to my desk. I'm like, yeah, like, it's energizing. And that's the first thing. The second part is, what would I say to someone that's successful and wants to find themselves? So, to get to your actual question, like, it is so worth it, because the literal light, like, I feel light, because, and it's been a journey. People listening, like, oh my goodness, this is not how I was born. I was not like this. This is very recent, but just feeling like I can own my voice.
Hmm.
I can have an opinion. I'm okay if you disagree with me. Like it's
Yes.
like I can hold that. I'm okay with that. I wasn't even a year ago. Like I took down LinkedIn posts. I kid you not, because one person would come on and like insult me or say something a little bit negative. I would go and delete that post. Like
Hmm.
now, you're not going to catch me deleting a post. Believe me, it's me, and it's fine if you disagree, but such a journey. But it's so worth it because you can just feel like good in your own space. Like again, your opinions, your thoughts, your value that you can add, feel good about that. And I really think this journey, it's been hard, man. It's been so hard, so hard. Like I have cried. I mean, I released my book and I spent the next day crying, like just, that emotional roller coaster. So it's not like, oh, I have everything figured out now. No, absolutely not. I think it's a constant journey, but I now know it's worth it.
It is a constant journey,
Hmm.
but you hit on some key points there. And Gary Vee said the same thing. If you don't love your work, do a side hustle,
Mm.
build it up so that you can find your joy, do what you love. That's so important. And I'm
Hmm.
speaking for someone who's pivoted in their 50s. I still work in transportation, but I pivoted to this in my 50s. And I'm like you, where I love coming up here every day to my office. I have no problems coming up here and getting going every day, working on the podcast, reaching out to people, interviewing folks, just talking to folks about mental health awareness. It is energizing. It's great for your confidence. It's motivating. It really makes a difference and it increases your energy. So
Hmm.
I'm with you on all of that. And I think it's really important. Thank you, Candice. I appreciate it. Your message is really important for people out there that are high achievers who think that they should be happy, but they're not. They're stuck in the day to day. They're in Groundhog's Day over and over again.
Yes.
And your experience and your book can really make a difference. And what I'll do is I'll include a link to your book in the show notes. I'll send a link to you said it was an assessment, right? I can include that in there as
Yes.
well.
Yes. Yes.
If you just email it to me, I'll include that in the show
I
notes
will
as
do
well.
that.
And thank you. I really appreciate your knowledge and your insight. It's going to help change somebody's life.
Awesome. Thank you. And I want to highlight something you actually said right now is people who think they should be happy, but they're not. So like, well, I've got a good job, I've got a great house, I've got the family, I've got all the things and all the boxes are ticked, yet I still feel
Hmm.
that that was a good one. I
I've
just,
been there. I understand it.
yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much. In closing, I would just say if you're out there and you're successful but feeling invisible, read Choose You to begin recognizing the pattern, learning how to change things for the better for you. And what I would take away from today is Candace works with a specific demographic, successful people who feel trapped by the lives that they've built. Candace has identified a pattern that a lot of people don't really name in the mental health world: career invisibility. You're becoming invisible maybe while doing everything right. It starts early. It did for me when I was a child, but it can vary. Maybe it's in school, but you learn that shrinking is safer. I played that game and learned that it wasn't, but it's something that you can work on, that you can improve on and achieve. You can improve your confidence. So start working on that today. Reclamation is possible through the pillars of agency, through recognizing your work archetypes, through actively choosing yourself back. You can recover your authentic self without losing your success. Choose you. Start today. And please like and comment on this episode. And again, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, call or text 988 or 911 if it's an emergency. You matter. Your authentic self matters, and reclamation is possible. I'm Mike Orlowski. This is Mojo Motivation and Mental Health. Work hard, choose you, reclaim your authenticity, and get your mojo back. Thank you.